IlmFest 2015. I'm riding along with Boonaa here. We're not going to call this a ride-along discussion. That's me and Ammar. This, for IlmFest, is going to be tag-along.
I'm the other black guy, so I get to also have a ride-along. Thank you very much, Ammar.
So the question here was, are American Muslims whack and do they need to be getting rid of? Because that's what Boonaa believes.
There you go. You see? You don't even know the difference between us. We all just look the same to you. Hey, brother man. No, let's be very clear now. What I was saying, I wanted to have a discussion.
Let me put some things in context,
okay,
right?
Go ahead.
So now, Boonaa believes that American Muslims are stereotypical, and it's okay to stereotype them.
Not just every Muslim. British Muslims, Canadian Muslims, Australian Muslims. But I'll put everyone into a box.
You got a particular definition of American Muslims,
No,
right? This guy's Canadian, for those of you who don't know.
Astaghfirullah. We're just another state in the U.S. Don't worry. Don't get offended. That's what you all think anyways.
Whereas my newly adopted home, the independent Republic of Texas, I believe is a different country.
Yeah, it is actually.
So anyway, interesting thing was this. I walk into the hotel room yesterday, not the hotel room, the lobby. And I am trying to say, okay, so salamat datang, whatever it was
that's racist. You can't say it like that. It's salamat datang.
Okay.
Salamat datang.
Anyway, I was asking the guy, how do you say it? And apparently I wasn't saying it right. So he's like, salamat datang. And I'm like, great, what does that mean? So he goes, it means welcome. And so I'm like, great. But he's like, what first? Assalamu alaikum. I'm like, oh snap, there's Muslims around here.
Yeah.
And that was completely weird.
He didn't know there was Muslims in Asia. There's a whole billion of them, just to be clear, okay?
I didn't say that I didn't know there are Muslims here. I just didn't know who's Muslim and who's not Muslim.
You've been in Texas too long. That's the problem. Is that
a whole month.
That's all it takes, by the way, to ruin a perfectly good mind.
A whole month in Texas.
Keep them in Texas and they just go down the drain. I wanted to basically have a discussion around different Muslims in the West, okay? Now, so basically, Western countries and Western nations, there's a lot of talk about Muslims in the West, but I've had a chance to visit a lot of communities in different countries, in different cities, and so I have a pretty good perspective, I feel, of the needs of different communities.
He only feels it. It's not really true.
I mean, it's not wahi or anything. I can't say, this is inspiration I'm getting.
It's not facts.
It's just something that I've, just my observation, okay? So, first is the American Muslim, okay? The American Muslim, on average, is very liberal.
Very liberal.
Okay, very liberal. In comparison to Muslims, I'm saying
that's if you talk about to the non-mosque going.
I'm saying the average American Muslim, mosque going or non-mosque going.
It's funny. Ammar was telling me yo, bro, we got to get our masjid game on. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been to the masjid at least once this week, and at the same time, it's like I go to the masjid almost every day, once a day at least, and he's like, what?
Yeah, that's lame, bro.
And
5 times a day, baby. You got to be in the masjid, man.
But here's the thing. Most people aren't used to being at the masjid 5 times a day.
So let me explain to you now.
It's not even required.
First of all, you have to pray salah in the jama'ah, okay? You have to pray with the Muslimin. And
so you're saying that if
salah
is not in jama'ah, it's not accepted?
No, I'm not saying
it's not valid.
As a man, and if you have the means, you should pray in the masjid.
Well,
if you have a car, if you have even if you should actually try your best to live in an area where a masjid is close to you. You shouldn't put yourself in such an isolated community where
what about where masajid be positioning themselves in a way that's easy for people to get to, as opposed to out in the boondocks?
No, I can't talk about Texas, okay, because Texas is just a big boondock. But in general, Muslim communities live around masajid. I mean, you have a masjid will place itself in a community that they know Muslims live in. They're not going to put themselves in the middle of nowhere if they think no one's going to attend.
Arab and Desi Muslims, maybe.
And you are... Have you become African American in the last 20 minutes or what? Here's my point.
Hey, my name is Belal, right?
Yeah, so you're welcome, okay? So that's coming from us, okay? Here's my point, is that American Muslims in general hold this philosophy that, and actually I can trace it down to where it comes from, is because a lot of the Indo-Pakistani people and Arabs who came to America, they needed to have a certain level of education, okay? You needed to have a degree, you need to have a certain income in order to actually be able to come to America.
The reason they came here was for better life.
That's fine. They came for a better life, but at the same time, they were of a certain class, okay, and they were of a certain mentality. And we know if you go to many Muslim countries, the people who are well off, the people who are quote unquote educated, are usually people who are irreligious. They're not really connected to religion in general. This is just a general premise.
There's a whole other historical background that goes into that if you talk about the colonial movement and all these other things.
Yes, but I'm
talking about... Can you blame them?
blame or no blame, we're talking about facts, okay? That the Muslims who came to America typically were coming from educated families with degrees and backgrounds that allowed them to thrive in a Western democracy, in a Western,
Western
capitalist
republic,
whatever, republic of capitalism, blah blah blah. Okay,
guys, Canadian, like I said.
So here's my point now.
Socialist country.
The Muslims who came to places like the UK, for instance, right, where a lot of the Indo-Pakistani came to the UK. The UK was, India was a British colony, so they were allowed easier access to the UK. So you had a lot of people from the villages, from the countryside, who didn't have the best quote-unquote education, but they were very religious people. They had, cultural practices that were embedded in their belief. And that's why you find even the Islam you have in the UK, sometimes it looks like a very cultural Islam.
So what's the point? What are you getting at? You're
I'm
giving us a whole history lesson.
That's what you need. You need a history lesson to understand why Muslims are where they are in certain contexts. So the Muslims in the UK, they're people who have a very hard time adapting to their society, because a lot of them still live in a village. They came from a village back home and they were plopped in a village in the UK.
Yeah, you can take them out of the village, but you can't take the village out of them. Is
Very
that what
good.
you're saying?
Exactly. Okay. And the people in the US, actually, a lot of them had this kind of bourgeois mentality. They had this,
I don't speak French.
Okay. Well, they had. Let me break it down for you Texan folks out there. Okay. They had this very, prestigious idea of who they were and their educational background and their values, and so they were like city people who felt as though maybe they didn't really need religion, or a lot of times their religious values were just very lightly culturally based,
or maybe religiosity was associated with something negative that's due to the society they grew up in.
So, but irregardless of where that mentality came from, they came with it. Okay, so a lot of those Muslims you find in the U.S. and Canada to a certain extent, they weren't as religious as the ones who came to other countries. Okay, the UK being the main example.
Here's the question though: what do you consider religious? Because a lot of times I feel like people take religiosity to the fact that I'm wearing a thobe.
I'm talking about somebody who does the bare minimum, somebody who prays their 5 salah.
Okay.
Okay, somebody who prays their salah.
Prays their salah, fast Ramadan. Aspiration to go to Hajj.
Okay.
Aim to
just that. Let's stick with just that. You find more of those in the UK than you do in America.
And
on average. This is just my opinion. This is what I've seen interacting with communities, even seeing the youth, seeing the young people, seeing their values, their ideas towards Islam and religion, and seeing that they are much stronger, in the UK. And here's the funny thing. So if you go to some place like Australia is very close to Canada, because Australians, I think, are a little bit more in the middle. You have people who they have their cultural identity, their background, where they came from, whatever country they came from, and yet they still hold Australian values, and they're still practicing Muslims, and they're trying their best. A place that I actually feel sorry for more than anything is Europe. Okay, European Muslims are the most masakeen people I ever seen.
Wait, aren't British Muslims like that?
No, British Muslims are different.
How's You're saying Britain Muslims are different?
British Muslims are different than European, quote unquote. I'm talking about like Scandinavia. I'm talking about the Netherlands. I know you Texan people don't know your geography. Let me break it down for you, okay? Europe is not a city, okay? I know you thought Europe was a city in Dallas. It's not, okay?
Britain is Europe is part of Europe.
No, yes, but British have completely different identity than the rest of European. But what I know is that the European Muslims, unfortunately, they are like severely oppressed. Okay, they are people who, you could look at France as a classic example of just Muslims who are just ghettoized. They just live in the slums. They don't have equal access to education,
and Europe's version of Mexicans.
They are the European. I won't even say Mexican, because Mexicans have rights, quote unquote. Muslims in places like the Netherlands, I've seen places in Belgium where girls are not allowed to wear hijab in school. Okay, you're talking about just regular public schools. I'm talking about a whole community of Muslims. Imagine a whole country of Muslims where they don't even have an Islamic school. Okay, where they're not even allowed to build an Islamic school. Okay, this was my experience in the Netherlands. That the Muslims there there were so many, a lot of Moroccans, a lot of Turkish born Muslims that were there, but their access to Islam was just so weak. I just felt sorry for them. And I actually appreciated Canada and even the US a lot more, and in the UK, because I felt like although definitely we have our issues and definitely we're oppressed in different ways.
You notice how you mentioned the UK last.
I did in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical order, okay.
I know you got Texas people.
But you do realize UK is before US.
Is it?
Do you know your alphabet?
Yeah, we have a different Canadian alphabet. That's why we say Z and not Z and all that kind of stuff.
No, we say Z. You guys say Z.
Yeah, one of the two. One of them. But I know that
I think
Muslims
he's secretly American.
No, I'm not. Muslims in places like Asia, so like here, Malaysia is a perfect example. I feel like are a good example of how people can have an identity, a cultural identity, and still flourish within Islam.
By the way, here in Malaysia, I think Kuala Lumpur is like the only major city, right?
No, are you kidding me, dude? Are you kidding me? Yo, Malaysia is not a joke, man. Malaysia is like an empire, man. These guys are running things out here.
Well, what else do they have besides Kuala Lumpur?
I'm so excited to be here, man. There's a whole country. First of all, we're in Putrajaya, which is like
Putrajaya. I was told that
We've
Putrajaya.
Been to Langkawi many times. Langkawi is another beautiful part of the country. Indonesia, again, is another great example. Indonesia is a country of like how many million Muslims? And they are
Indonesia, which is soon to be overcome in terms of number of Muslims by India.
Yeah. India's on the rise, man.
Yes. Do you agree with Boonaa's or Boon's or Mobo's or Bomo actually Bomo Boonaa Mohammed? Do you agree with Bomo's analysis and observation of American Muslims and other types of Muslims across the world? And if you don't agree, please.
If I sounded really like
viscerally respond
or generic. Forgive me, it's not meant to be a generic thing, but it's just based on my experiences.
No, stereotypes are absolutely not generic.
Yeah, stereotypes, they come from somewhere, by the way. They're not all just made up in okay, I'm going to get myself in more trouble. Let's just shut it off there. That's it.
All right, guys. Assalamu alaikum. See you soon.